Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. I wanted to let you know that we have created a 6-month guide to marketing your e-commerce store. You can download this guide by visiting getosi.com/guide or by texting GetOSI to 33444. This guide will show you how to get more traffic, sales, and conversions for your online store. Get the guide right now by visiting getosi.com/guide or by texting GetOSI to 33444. Welcome back, everyone, to the E-Commerce Marketing Podcast. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest. He is one of the most highly regarded independent consultants in his industry. Kurt Elster is a senior e-commerce consultant who helps Shopify store owners uncover hidden profits in their websites. Kurt is the founder of e-commerce agency Ethercycle, host of the popular Ecommerce Hacks Weekly video series, author of Ecommerce Bootcamp, and host of the Unofficial Shopify Podcast. These resources have helped thousands of Shopify store owners create impact, freedom, and wealth. Welcome to the podcast, Kurt. We appreciate you joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, you've got a pretty diverse background. And, but kind of before we get into the topic of the day, which, by the way, we're going to be talking about user interface and conversion rate optimization and how to boost your return on advertising spend. But before we get into all of that, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got going, what you were doing before you got started at the agency you're at right now, and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I suppose I never intended to be involved with e-commerce, but it just kept choosing me over and over. Starting in college, I was selling stuff out of my dorm room on eBay, and like twice just running afoul of eBay's regulations because I knew so little. I didn't even know I was selling essentially like unlicensed counterfeit goods. Had no idea.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, ended up as a e-commerce channel manager for a local aftermarket auto parts dropshipper.
Okay.
And that was just really because I had business experience, new cars, and had this eBay experience. And I, after doing that job for a while, I thought that I still had that strong entrepreneurial bug. I couldn't work for someone else. It felt wrong. It felt like betraying myself. So I quit with no plan, and then kind of not knowing what I didn't know, said, you know what, I'll make my own e-commerce platform. And I was going to do an e-commerce platform exclusively for bike shops. And that turned out to be way harder than I thought. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, to keep the lights on, we started doing development.
Okay.
WordPress websites for local businesses, and then climbed the ladder. Pretty soon we were doing development work for big agencies. So working on stuff for Verizon, the NFL, Hilton Hotels. And at the same time, we were doing e-commerce work for local businesses. And that was the stuff we really liked.
Okay.
Because design wasn't subjective there. It was tied to value. It was really, instead of having a conversation like, well, my dog doesn't like blue, so we can't use blue. And you're like, oh, God. Mm-hmm. With e-commerce, it's very much like, all right, this is the design we're going to go with because this is what's going to make you money.
Right.
And that was just such a relief from dealing with like traditional design that's not tied to anything. So I said, why are we messing with any of this other stuff? Let's just do e-commerce. And then within that, we worked on a bunch of e-commerce platforms and said, gee, when we finish the Shopify projects, we always go, that was easy. Well, it wasn't that it was easy, is that we were good at it.
Okay.
And it was the right platform for us. So I said, all right, let's just stick with that. Let's do only that. And having that clear focus and positioning was like the best decision we made.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of the guests that I have on, it's always interesting to see people's background and how they kind of get to where they're at today. And so your experience with e-commerce early on, like you said, dabbling with the eBay and, like you said, selling unlicensed good, and then, getting to where you're at. It's always interesting to see where people have come from. And, so for today, as I was mentioning at the beginning, you're going to give us some insight on the user interface and conversion rate optimization, how to use that and optimize those things to boost a return on your advertising spend, which is a very great topic, good question, because, here at OmniStar, we talk to e-commerce store owners all day, and we're, everybody's looking to maximize the return on their advertising spend. That's the bottom line. And so, where would a merchant start when making conversion rate optimization improvements with regards to their shopping cart, product detail pages, or even category pages. And before you get into that, what you can let our audience know a little bit about exactly what conversion rate optimization really is.
Sure. So conversion rate optimization is taking, well, you know what your conversion rate is. You got the percentage of people who visit the site and what percentage of people visit the site buy, right? That's our conversion rate.
Right.
But if you break that, and the idea is to, well, let's make all of our changes with that number in mind. How do we move the needle on that number? And so we're not going to do things, like I said, like my dog doesn't like blue, so we can't use blue. No, instead of doing stuff really kind of arbitrarily like that, we're going to take this data-driven approach where all we care about is moving that number, right? That's our big key performance indicator in our business. And that if you have committed to that idea, okay, cool. Now you've taken the first step into data-driven design, which is great because it eliminates a lot of this back and forth and like, well, what should this look like? It doesn't matter. Just go try it, see what it does for your numbers, your key performance indicators. And to your point, if you have the higher you can get that conversion rate, the higher your return on investment on your marketing spend is going to be. Mm-hmm. So if I know it costs me, my budget for Facebook ads is $10,000 a month, and I can double my conversion rate, well, now suddenly I've doubled the ROI of my ad spend. So that's why you want to be thinking in those terms.
Gotcha. I know a lot of the listeners out there have various shopping carts like Shopify. I know you guys are, of course, Shopify consultants. And, they're wondering, a lot of the listeners and people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis typically use the built-in templates with either Shopify or whatever shopping cart they use. They make some tweaks. I have a few customers that have, done some custom things, but a lot of people use the standard designs. And so, with that in mind, really what are some of the basic changes somebody could make to try to optimize their return on ad investments with regards to just a basic theme?
So I'd love using those out of the box themes, because really it's like people look down their nose at them because it's like, well, I only spent $150 on this theme that everybody has, where I could have spent $30,000 on a custom theme and it would be exactly what I want and perfect for me. Yeah, but the premium themes have to be built to handle hundreds or thousands of stores, and they're all special snowflakes. They're all a little different. So the themes often have tons of stuff thought through and settings that you wouldn't have in a custom theme. So actually, I'm a big proponent of those premium themes, and especially think most people absolutely benefit from starting with it. And only if you can't achieve something or you really need this very specific branding, then jump to the custom theme. But going back to the data-driven approach, I say, look at your conversion funnel, right? So like the conversion rate really is the final number. Prior to that, what percentage of people reach checkout? Well, prior to that, what percentage of people add to cart? That's the one. If you move the needle on that one, the others all go up too. And that's oftentimes you want to work a little bit backwards here. So if you get that add to cart number up, say like, let's say your add to cart number was 5%. If you can get it to 10%, in theory, that conversion rate number may double as well. And it's often way easier because it's granular, it's sooner. So typically, one of the easiest optimizations we've been doing for probably like the last 18 months, the most impactful one anyway, early on in a relationship to improve conversion, is just make it utterly, effortlessly simple for a new visitor to get to the right product for them as quickly as possible.
Right.
And I think what that does is build momentum. You go to the bar, you see a girl, hey, can I buy you a drink? Yes. Hey, hey, what's your name? Yes. Hey, can I get your number? Yes. Hey, can I take you out? Yes. All right, you're building momentum there versus if you just walked up to someone and said, will you marry me? The answer is 100% of the time going to be no.
Right.
Where that's the same things go. You're building a relationship using your website. Your website is your best salesperson. So when the customer lands on that site for the first time, that's how we got to think. And that like very first step, that thing we need them to do is find the right product for them, get to the product and add it to cart. Right. And then everything else from there, okay, great. Now we can start optimizing for that stuff. But until they add it to cart, what was the point?
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of people start way too late in that conversion funnel.
That's
what I would look at is, man, can you just get the right product to the right person faster?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I love that analogy. At a bar, you would never go up to a girl and just ask her to marry you. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but the results on that, like you said, about 100%, that you're going to get a no on that. And it's the same way with the website and e-commerce sites. You're not going to just present someone a product without, doing any type of lead into that. Now, many of our customers out there today, the world is changing a lot with regards to e-commerce. And with e-commerce and conversion rate optimization, how really has that evolved now that mobile e-commerce is really big now? Most people really do a lot of people do purchase on mobile devices. Is it any different?
It's absolutely different. It's cool, but it's harder. We all have this device in our pocket that is straight up addictive, and we could sit on the couch anywhere. Like everyone in the bathroom's on their phone. They're on the couch on their phone.
Right.
They've got this thing all the time in front of them. And then the whole thing is built around essentially creating distractions for, because God forbid you have a terrible moment of introspection in your own life, right? You got to keep looking at this phone for fear of thinking about our lives. Hey, all right. So that was a joke. I promise. But yeah, it's the physical form factor changes our behavior. And we've got, so like a laptop, you use it in a totally different way now than you'd use your phone. And it also changes conversion rate optimization. It changes our behavior pretty dramatically. So like the phone's got a small screen, but it's also it's a vertical screen. Right. So it totally changes that form factor, where now we need like very single columns of content, and it's got to be very easy to read. And mobile phones don't have keyboards. And even though people are like texting constantly, they don't want to type in as soon as you're like, all right, you got to type in your credit card address. They're like, oh, I don't want to do it.
Right.
So you have to make like affordances to the stuff to make it really easy to do. But here's a really interesting one. This is universal with any site. It is much easier to get people to scroll than it is to get them to click through different pages. So a mobile device, a touch device, it's really easy to scroll.
Yeah.
So the idea of like the fold and scrolling down a page doesn't exist nearly in the same way on a mobile device. So you can have these really long pages without a problem, and that will often convert better because you don't have people jumping from page to page to page.
Yeah.
And you got to be really mindful of load times too.
That's true.
We're in Chicago. I've got, we all have LTE. It works great. It works fast. Right up until you've got poor signal because you're in, the center of some building or you're on the subway, and now the phone's on 3G, and you better hope that your website is small enough that it will load properly on those devices. That's couple of the interesting things I've found with mobile versus desktop. Yeah,
it makes total sense. And like you said, as far as the scrolling is concerned, people are already so accustomed to scrolling. I mean, there's so many apps where you gotta, you're just scrolling through. I mean, Facebook and Instagram, for instance, it's a never ending scroll of different posts. And so it's
a looking pool.
Yeah.
You just stare at it forever.
Exactly. It's a never ending looking pool. I like that. And people are comfortable doing that. So if your e-commerce site, takes on elements of that where there's a scroll and not too much clicking, then you definitely will.
Well, let's say you got, here's an easy optimization for mobile. Set up in your collection pages, load a whole bunch of products in the first go, avoid pagination, use infinite scroll. Yeah. Now I don't have to click to other pages. The thing just loads seamlessly for them. You're eliminating steps and decisions they have to make. Like, do I really want to click next page? Yeah. Now they'll just keep scrolling. Facebook has trained us to do it. Yeah. Take advantage of that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. But everybody has been trained. Exactly. This is the next question here is something that I always look at as as a way to kind of model things. And so what are e-commerce companies, what are some of the big e-commerce companies doing to get people to pay attention? What are they doing, what are they doing right or getting right in terms of conversion rate optimization? Because I think, you can really learn from some of the big players in the game.
Certainly there are things we could point to, but it's an interesting dilemma. So the largest e-commerce players, we got Amazon, Jet, Walmart, Target, they're all teaching us how to shop, right? So it kind of doesn't matter what they're doing right or wrong. We assume that they're investing in data-driven research. But for all we know, Jeff Bezos is just making things up, doing what he thinks is cool, throwing shit against the wall, see what sticks.
Right.
Who knows? I mean, the thing is, it doesn't matter, right? They're teaching us how to shop. So for better or worse, those big players are setting the standards for us.
Yeah.
And like, it's your business, it's your site. You should do what you want, but you never want to have to teach your users how to use your site if you can avoid it. You know, it's homework, and no one likes homework. So sticking to those design patterns that have been employed by your largest competitors, like Amazon, can improve your conversion rates, because then when someone lands on your site, their customers, they'll recognize those patterns, even though they don't think about it, and intuitively know what to do. So Amazon has a clever one. They use color isolation theory. So the primary call to action on any page is always is generally reserved for one look. So if you notice, like, add to cart, this initial search button, then the add to cart button, then the proceed to checkout button, those are all the same color and style.
Wow.
They trained you. It's cool.
Yeah.
So that's a simple thing. You could do that in any e-commerce platform. It's not going to cost you anything. It's easy, but it's that stuff. And off it to, like, we've got 3 Shopify apps. 2 of them exist solely because there were cool features I saw on Amazon and thought, man, I wonder if we could make that work. And that's it. Like, that's it. So it really, whether they're doing it right or wrong, kind of doesn't matter. If they're huge, they're training us, and we should all kind of adopt those standards to make life easier.
Right. And the main thing, and another point to that, is they're definitely training customers, but at the same time, you always have to look at these large companies, because you just have to understand the amount of money, marketing dollars they spend. And, you know, they have teams and teams of design folks that are going through the site. They're doing case studies, they're doing what was the word I'm looking for? They're doing, analysis of every little detail, and all of that is going behind it. There's so much money behind it. So, you don't, as a small business, you don't have to go and, reinvent the wheel. You just have to pick up those small things, like you said, little design elements that they stick to. And there's reasons why they do that, because all of the decisions that they're making is backed on a lot of money and a lot of research. And so you definitely can't forget that. Now, speaking of some of the design elements of a site, what are actually some specific design mistakes that you actually see merchants making?
Oh, the biggest one I'm going to say is, I could go endlessly, but right now my big complaint is crufty sites. So crufty sites are the result of flailing business owners. They're just trying stuff, hoping to God that they get the one app or feature that's like, yeah, it's going to 10x our business. And of course, it doesn't work like that. And when I say crufty, I mean, think of big boats, big ships. The older a ship is, the more barnacles it accumulates, right? And everyone I talk to before we build a site for them says, I want it. It's got to be clean. I want a really clean site. But no one says no one has ever once said, I want a really messy, cluttered site.
Right.
All right. So then why do they all feel the need to tell me they want a clean site?
Right.
It's because everybody, over time, the sites get crufty, because it's like, all right, you're cruising around, you're on a competitor site, they do something cool, so you go, oh, I got to do that too. And then and you see a cool app, you're like, oh, shit, I got to try that too. And pretty soon, you've got this 20 meg homepage with 24 widgets all screaming at your visitors, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
So I think you have to start thinking in terms of expected value, and have like an approach and process for this, and asking yourself hard questions like, man, what purpose does this serve?
Right.
And that really is, it's hard, because on your website, it's your sales tool, it's your salesperson, your 24/7, 365 salesperson. So I think the site's got a job, and it's sell your stuff.
Right.
And each page has a job. It's to get them to the next step. And each element on that page should have a job. And it's whatever it is, whether it's like bust this objection, add urgency, get them to the next step, but qualify them, whatever it is. And that's how you have to approach it. Like, so I'll look at a site and just go, why is this here? And they're like, I don't know, I thought it was cool. Then get rid of it.
Right.
Because cool isn't a good reason to have it.
That's correct. It doesn't make sense to have it if you're not seeing a return, if it's not being a benefit to your customers or your prospects. And that analogy, I love that analogy you mentioned, as far as, everybody wants a clean site, but
they all start as clean sites.
Yeah, they just over time.
And then 2 years, after 2 years, then it's like this disaster.
Exactly. And it's the main thing is, it's kind of like what you're saying. It goes down to everyone is trying to keep up with the quote unquote Joneses. And, they see something cool on another site or one of their competitors. Oh, I got to have it. Even though it may not make sense for their, for their business, but they got to have it. So it's just one of those things. But
and it happens to everybody sometimes. Like
okay.
I certainly have done some very silly stuff just because I'm like, I want to try it. Mm-hmm. Like I did a YouTube series from my car just because I thought I was watching a bunch of car vlogs. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that. So I'm hosting a series about Shopify from my own damn car.
Wow.
And it worked okay. It was fine.
Okay.
I get leads from it. But it's like, what was the real logic there? There wasn't. It was just something cool I wanted to try. So
right.
Sometimes there's advantage in that.
Yeah, there is. There's sometimes you can pick out some things that others are doing that, it'll be right for you, and you may hit a home run. But there's other times where a lot of those times it may not be a good fit. Now, we talked a lot about the design elements of the site and things that you can do with respect to improving that. But what about the messaging for the site? Like, what specific messaging mistakes have you guys seen that, companies have made mistakes, and what could they do to improve them?
Oh, and I'm glad you asked, because this is my number one issue. So truthfully, this whole time I've been talking about design and features and patterns, and really the number one thing we've ever done that has had the most dramatic results on boosting conversion rates is copywriting. Like just changing headlines, taglines, descriptions. That has been the most impactful thing. And you have to have good messaging. And the core to that good messaging is going to be a good positioning statement. Mm-hmm. So really, if I have to say, the big messaging mistake I see people making is two things. They have soggy messaging as opposed to crispy. Like if you go, Kurt, what do you do? I say, well, I help Shopify merchants uncover hidden profits in their store. That's really crispy. That's fast. That takes less than 10 seconds for me to say. Mm-hmm. And immediately, okay, Shopify merchant, yes, no. So if you're not, we rule you out. We get rid of you.
Right.
And if you are a Shopify merchant, now it's kind of like I just said to you, I'm a dog lawyer, where you're like, I got to know more about that. What's a dog lawyer?
Right.
Where they got to ask, all right, so you uncover hidden profit. How do you do that? And then okay, that creates the conversation. But having that positioning statement is really hard to do. Writing a positioning statement, and you could do it yourself right now. You sit down and go, I help target market achieve, desirable outcome, unlike my competitors' competitive advantage. So that's, Kurt Elster helps Shopify store owners uncover hidden profits in their stores. Unlike my competitors, I'm solely concerned with return on investment.
Right.
There, boom, 10 seconds. You know exactly what I'm doing, who I'm doing it for, and why.
Yeah.
And that sound like when I rattled off like that, it sounds easy, but no, I went through dozens of iterations. It probably took realistically years of experience to come up with that. It's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to write a positioning statement. Mm-hmm. So the result is people have soggy messaging. Like mine is crisp. Soggy messaging is where like it takes you a full minute to explain to me what you do, at which point I have 100% checked out and I've stopped listening, 20 seconds in. Mm-hmm. So you want to have that crisp messaging. And I think where people get into trouble is they don't want to have like a clear niche, a laser focused market. They're trying to cast a super wide net.
Right.
So they write these very convoluted positioning statements. The second half of it, so number one, have clear and concise positioning. And in it, I say I help. So I'm starting with I. That's the only time I want to hear you use I. After that, I hate like a lot of sites, because when we talk about ourselves. But when you're in marketing mode, when you're on your site, man, you got to talk about me. Like I'm not talking to a person, I'm reading a website. So at that point, I am full on narcissist mode. I only care about myself. So I don't want to see sites with iria, where the thing's just I, all down the copy. You got to talk about me, to me, and what you're going to do for me. So I think like those two things alone, having that cornerstone piece, that clear positioning statement, even like a 3 to 5 word tagline, hugely beneficial, so that you have a clear idea of what you're doing, of what your marketing message is, and then your customers will too. It'll carry through everything, and then just go through your copy. How many times are you talking about yourself versus your customers? And even if it's in the context of like, here's what I'm going to do for you, just rewrite the damn sentence so it's about what you are going to get out of it.
Right. And it is definitely a lot harder than it seems, and I come across
both of those things really tough.
It is. It's not easy. And it's easy to say, okay, just come up with a crisp statement. But yeah, I come across this all the time where we have business owners that approach us to look into our software. And a lot of niche businesses that are selling a lot of just stuff you just would never imagine. And you go to their sites and you're like, wow, you can't figure it out from within, 10 to 20 seconds with a quick glance and you're like, okay, what is this? If you really have to just get to that point where if somebody can't figure out what it is you're providing and who their target is within, just that initial glance, then you have a problem. So, but it does take time to really massage it and make sure it's very clear to your audience. Now, wrapping things up, well, what are a few things that separate an enduring e-commerce business that you've seen, from just a typical flash in the pan or just a hobby type business that's just out there just because, they have free time?
So like I was lucky. I was in a position where I had, I was a young guy. I had like no expenses, no kids, no family. It was easy for me to just go and jump feet first into a business. Not everyone is in that position. Not everybody's that lucky. And I certainly couldn't do it today. So a lot of these businesses, I'll talk to people, they're really successful businesses. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I still have my day job. I'm like, how the heck? And that's where you get into trouble is like, you have to develop. So the short answer to your question is what are the things that separate it would be mindfulness, clarity of purpose, but above all else, being able to flex your no muscle. Mm-hmm. So, okay, early on, there's a lot of creative play that entrepreneurs engage in. Mm-hmm. And it's helpful at first. You got to experiment. Then over time, it could start to, and I see this a lot, it'll lead to entrepreneurial ADD. So at some point, like you had a hobby business, you're doing it like nights and weekends, a side hustle, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you're experimenting, but then the business concept was validated where your product market fit and you're making money. So now what? Well, now you need to focus. The only way you're going to scale that business is if you really focus. And the counterintuitive thing there is you got to start saying no to all the opportunities that your new success is brought. Like people are going to start coming out of the woodwork. Oh, you started a business. You started this Amazon business. Can you coach me? No, I can't. Sorry. Like you got to start saying no to stuff and you got to stay focused, avoid burnout, and then start delegating tasks, writing standard operating procedures, and quit your day job. It's really, at some point you got to say to yourself, okay, there's a tipping point and you have to say, is this a hobby or a career? Mm-hmm. And it's fine to have hobby businesses, but you need to recognize it for what it is.
Right. Yeah. At some point, everybody that starts the business, you have to get to that point, like you said, where it's no longer a hobby. You're gonna go head first into it and don't look back. So that's very important. That's key. Well, Kurt, you gave a wealth of information. We definitely appreciate you joining us here on the E-commerce Marketing Podcast. And if there's any e-commerce businesses or listeners out there that want to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
Google me, head to my website, kurtelster.com, okay. Sign up for my newsletter. And if it's automated emails. They come from my real email address. If you hit reply and ask me a thoughtful question, I will be glad to send you a thoughtful answer. Okay, great. That sounds awesome. Well, thanks again, Kurt, and we appreciate you joining us. You have a great rest of your day. My honor and pleasure. Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast. To access e-commerce videos and other resources to help your business grow, please visit getosi.com/videos. Subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for E-commerce Marketing Podcast, and please leave a rating and a review. Thanks for listening. See you next time.